Hi, everybody. Welcome to Life Stories Podcast, People Helping People. I'm Shara Goswick, your host. Today on the podcast, I chat with Holly Nichols, who works for the nonprofit World Link. World Link is a student exchange program that focuses on youth leadership and fostering cultural exchange. Holly has been a host mom many times, and so she knows how to help these families that are interested in hosting a student, and even the students that are thinking of coming over. They've got to work and earn this program. This is not something that they can just pay to do. So there's a lot involved in having students come and to host families here. I loved this program. I loved learning about it. And I think if you're interested in ever hosting a student as a foreign exchange student, this is the place you need to go. Check them out. Go to her website. Have a call with Holly. She is happy to talk to anybody that is interested. I thank you for being here.
You know, hosting foreign exchange students is something, I've had friends that have done it. We've never done it before. That was never part of my family, but it was always fascinating to me because I remember even in high school, we had foreign exchange students. Like I remember them. I remember having classes with them, and it was neat to learn about, their lives in their countries. But hosting one is very different, or, helping families find a student that they want to welcome into their home it's a big deal.
It is a big deal. And it's a fun way to spend life.
Absolutely. So I know you work for World Link, and they have a really great program. It's a nonprofit. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yes. We're a small nonprofit. Yes.
Nonprofit. Okay. So I want you to tell me about that and how you ever even got into doing this. Like, was this something you've always wanted to do, or, how you even got started with it?
Yeah, no, great question. Is World Link, we are small and we're small on purpose. And so we're based out of Iowa, is where our founders are located. And they are really passionate about basically keeping about the relationship piece. And so we stay really small. A lot of programs will do 2,000 or 3,000 kids a year. We do like 135, I think, are coming next year with our program across the whole country, because we want to make sure we know every kid, that we're connected, that if someone talks about a student out in California or Texas or wherever they are, that we are able to just respond well, to respond relationally and not just as a number. So that's our heart. And we only work with kids who are sponsored by the U.S. State Department or by a government agency on a scholarship. So none of our students can pay to come over. A lot of programs are private, where a student will pay money and then they'll come and live with a volunteer host family. But that's how they get into the program. And those are great programs as well. But that's not what we focus on. We focus only on students who have earned their way and have done a merit-based scholarship program based on academics and leadership specifically. So that's what we are, who we are, and what we do. And we do it a little bit differently because of that. We have a leadership program throughout the year and different things that our kids are a part of. And then as far as my part in that, I had done some overseas work. I had done some things in different places, and taught some English in Russia, and went to India, and had kind of floated around a little bit when I was in my early 20s, trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life. And I thought that's how I would spend my whole life. And then, so, think life happens and we grow up, and I had a job suddenly, and a baby, and life was happening. And I wanted, for myself and for my child, I just thought, wow, I really wish I could get to the nations. And I knew that wasn't really circumstantially going to work out, and was missing being with international people. My heart was in the international world. So I was missing that piece of what I do, or what I had been doing. And so I was at the airport actually one day, and saw a lady there with a sign and some balloons, and we started chatting, and I was there to pick up someone. And so we were chatting about that, and she told me what she did. And I was at the time very early 20s, and she said, why don't you volunteer for us? And so I volunteered for that program for many years. And then when I was in my late 20s, I started doing hosting students. And I thought, am I old enough? Can I do this? What is this like? So I wasn't sure exactly what to expect, and took in some students that ended up being a part of my life and my family. And it was just incredible. And then from there, I was, volunteering and finding families and hosting and all the different pieces. So with that piece of what I was doing, I found out that it was a job and that you could do this. And so I started just kind of moving that direction, and worked with some different organizations that did the private students, and then stepped away for a while because it really wasn't a good match for me. And And then I found World Link about 15 years ago and have been working with them ever since. Just working with our leadership program, working with our host families, and really just trying to make good matches around the world. So
Amazing. I
yeah.
love that you love that. I love that that's just, you can tell that's part of your heart is, being able to talk to people all over the world.
Yes.
So one of my questions, and I know we're going to focus on all the good stuff, but it is a question. Is there ever an issue? And I guess, let me see how to word this. The way that these kids earn the ability to come over because they're not paying for it, does that limit issues that families might have otherwise? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's got to be, it can't be all perfect all the time. And so I
Yes.
wonder if that process makes it harder for problems to arise, or maybe not as common for problems to arise.
Yeah, that's a great question. And it does. I will say yes. And I never want to promise perfect kids to anyone who's
Right.
willing to host because that's just not reality. So even our best leaders have imperfections. And
Right.
so as far as their screening process that they walk through, I'll start with that, is that they about 42, for example, we work with students from the former Soviet countries. That's one of our big pushes that started after the Cold War. And so with those particular kids, about 42,000 kids a year apply. And this year it's between 700 and 900 get in. So it's a very small, limited number, depending on the year and the funding and things, different numbers get in. But with that, very, very small percentage get in. So that's very helpful, obviously. And what they're looking for is English ability. Obviously, that will remove some of those students because they do all have to be fluent in English and able to sit through an American high school, that kind of thing. But then they also look at things like their leadership ability. What have they done in their community? And then they even put them in groups to watch how they interact with one another to try to make sure that they're getting good ambassadors from their countries, good diplomats that'll come over even though they're 15 and will represent their country well. So that helps tremendously. I can't really give true percentages because I don't know for sure, but gut feeling, I was in the private world for a long time. And the reason I walked over with the private students, and again, I have many daughters and around the world that are from those programs. And so, and they were amazing kids, but I walked away at some point and I was in someone's house and I was telling them about the program and I do get excited, like you said. And I walked away and thought, I hope I didn't just lie to that family. Because I was like, they're amazing and they're wonderful. And then when I got in my car, I thought 50-50 shot. I don't know, maybe they're amazing, maybe they're not. And maybe, they're here for the right reasons, maybe not. And so that's why I actually stepped away for several years because I was a little bit disheartened by, I don't know, are we doing the right thing? And so with WorldLink, I took a chance whenever I joined and thought, we'll see if it's the same or different. And our numbers are significantly different. We just did our percentages of even students that were a big deal enough to do like a disciplinary letter or something, like even just a small kind of, not just I dropped my laundry on the floor one too many times, but something like they, whatever, just were repeating behaviors that were small, irritating things. And that was actually less than 10% the other day when we ran our numbers for this year. So it's a very small number. So for us at 135 kids, we're talking, 10 to 12 kids this year had some sort of an issue, but they weren't issues that were major. They weren't issues that were that were scary or hard to deal with. It was just things that I thought, okay, they need a little bit of instruction to get along the way. So even with those kiddos, it's a pretty small percentage, if that helps.
That's I would think that it would be. I just wondered about that. What do you do when you have a student and there is a problem? And maybe it's not something they're doing wrong. It's just you don't feel like you're compatible or you're having a hard time with them or they're having a hard time with you. What do you do when that happens?
Yeah, so every host family is in a small radius of their local coordinator. So we do have local coordinators that work with us. It is a very, very part-time job that people do. So it's not a volunteer position. It is a job, and that way they are accountable to make sure things are taken care of. And their role is to find the families and to work with networking and finding. But then throughout the year, and to help match and screen and that kind of thing. But throughout the year, their main role is to support a host family and to support a student. And so if there's an issue, I always tell families, if you have a major problem, call me immediately. If you have a small problem that you've tried to correct more than twice and it's still bothering you, reach out. And sometimes it could be homesickness. It could be, that the student's isolating in the room or, because they're homesick or they're sad. It could be that they just, two siblings in the host, the family don't match. And so they're having to get along with. And so there's all sorts of little small things that can come up. And we really, really ask that our host families call us right away. And, people are like, oh, we don't want to bother. They're trying to solve their problems. But this is our expertise. And we've been doing this a long, long time. And so because of that, after hundreds, thousands of students that have passed through my life, then usually our local coordinators, and I work with that team. So we work together. So myself and the local coordinator and our director all work together on depending on the level of the issue. And even on small issues, a lot of times we'll have a conversation to say what's going to serve this family and this student the best. And that is why we stay so small, so that we know this is our situation, this is our kid. We know the family as far as we may not have ever met them because they may be in another state, but we know about them. We know a little bit about their situation. And so if it's two, teenagers, or if it's repetitive problems or whatever it is, that we notice that right away, so we can step in.
Good. That's good. So let's talk about the good things about this. I know there are lots of benefits of having someone, come and stay and you get to learn about their culture, but give me some benefits of hosting a student.
Yeah, I think for the family, I'll focus on first, because I do think that the people who are closest, like it's great, like you said, you remembered from high school. So I think it's great for the whole community. It's great for our schools and our education system to have these kids and expose our teenagers to and the communities to the world. But really, the people who get to know them and love them the most, and the people they come visit, are the host families. And so that's the role I think that is the tightest bond. And for that benefit, I started hosting when my child was, I think he was, I don't even remember exactly, 3 years old, I believe, when we started. And so he grew up around for his whole life. He always had students in and out in the countries. And so it was fascinating to me in a place where there's all the things about, can you find this country, can you do this or whatever, with our teenagers and our education, and those kind of things. That's not usually an American priority in our education systems. And instead, I sat down one day when my child was, I don't know, an early teenager, I think he was still in middle school, and I heard him discussing Kyrgyzstan politics. And I thought, I mean, that's a random thing. And it wasn't like a big thing. He was just a normal kid, but he was like, well, in Kyrgyzstan, and he started talking about that situation. And so it really helps that. So whether from an educational standpoint of view, I think it really helps the students and the family and the adults. I didn't know about those countries, and I wasn't aware. So the adults and the kids, everybody learns more, but I think even more you're connected. And so now if there's something that's in the news, it's not, oh, something's happening, I wonder what's going on. It's a kid that I love and care about, and it makes me think differently. It makes me see the world differently. And sometimes we'll have two countries that I'll watch on TV that they're at war with one another, perhaps, or skirmishes with one another. But I love kids in both countries. So it changes the way that our minds think. I think changes that heart and mind, that coherence there, they click right away, where it's not a question of who's right or wrong. It's suddenly just about what's happening in the world and how are the people impacted. And I think that changes the way that we view things. If we love someone somewhere else, it's really hard to think negatively about that place, or to think negatively about their whole population, which is the purpose of the program, really.
Oh, yeah. Do you still keep in touch with a lot of the kids that you've had? You do.
I do, thankfully, for social media, because that makes it easy to do. And I would say around the world, there's 17 or 18 that lived with me long enough where they would say, that's my mom, that's my host's mom. So it's not like we talk every day to that many kiddos, but now they're growing up and they have families, and it's fun to watch from afar as they're spreading their wings and starting careers and living life. So, and then in our program, our local coordinators as well. I've been a local coordinator for many, many hundred kids and several hundred kids. And so with that, we just get to see good things happening, because these are the world leaders, right? Like, they grow up to be the ones that are doing something and making an impact. And it's usually somebody that you think, oh, that was a great kid and it was a great relationship. The next thing you know, they're changing their communities and they're opening, whatever it is to help and to serve, opening a library or whatever it is that they're doing, where you're thinking, wow, this student's, only now 24, 25, 30 years old, and they're doing major things. And a lot of that is because, and not all of them, but we get to see a lot of that. And like I said, they're starting families and they're living lives and they're parenting different because of their experience here, and they're seeing the world different. So it's like you daily get to see your impact somewhere on social media, which is not, I think, something that most people get to do. So hosting to me is that door. That's the door to doing that. It's the door to the world, so that it's your living room that you're looking at when you're scrolling through the world news or social media.
Yeah. What would you recommend to a family who's thinking about hosting a foreign exchange student?
I would say really consider why you should. I think if I talk to any family about it, I usually hear we're not this or that, we're too busy, but I'll hear we're too busy, we're not busy enough. I'll hear different things like, oh, how they're going to get bored at my house. Then the next person will say, oh, we're too busy, we can't. And then somebody will say, oh, our school's really tiny, I don't think that'd be a good fit. And somebody will say, oh, our school's so big, the kids gonna get lost. So I hear those back and forth, and we have students that are successful every time. And when I started hosting, like I said, I was late 20s. I was in a small house. I had a toddler. I did not look like the person that should host, but because I decided, I thought if this coordinator says I can, I guess I can. I guess I'm more qualified than I
Right.
thought. So think of yourself as qualified and take the jump, because you do have a support system. You have a support system in any good organization. And I know you're all over the country, your podcast. So we do work in several states, and we work across the country. And so I know that we support you. The WorldLink does. But then also, if we're not in your area and you choose another organization, a good organization is going to support you through that. So if you get those places where there's a bump, then there's people to help you. So I would say opt yourself in. Don't opt yourself out, because everybody does that. Anybody I've ever talked to says, well, we thought about it, but this, and they start making all the reasons. And when we're having our own children, when we're building our own families, we don't think that way. It just, it happens, or it's there. And so it's not, we just make it work. And you don't have to be special. You don't have to be someone that does, takes them on big trips or does whatever, or sits
Right.
down even at the meal every night. Like it doesn't have to be a traditional situation to be loving. And so if you have love, opt yourself in.
That's great. What about, so let's say there's a family that's thinking about it and what do they do? Do they go to your website and find out information? Do
Yes.
they?
Yep,
Okay.
absolutely. So I don't know where you post all the things on the podcast, but I'll make sure that you have all my
Oh,
information.
yes,
You can
I'll
post
post the
it. Yeah.
website. Yeah.
Yeah. So however that format is, but we have a website and where you can go learn about it, watch some videos, those kind of things. But I'm happy to give up my personal cell and my email address, because this is how I spend my life. So that way people can contact, they can text, they can email, and we'll get more information in people's hands. Anybody who's interested. And like I said, I know that we're not probably in every state that's listening. And so if we can't help for some reason, we can point you to some other programs, and that way it'll help you find your path.
So does it cost the families anything to do this other than having, an extra person in their house? Does it cost something for them?
Great question. So there's no fees to pay. There's nothing like that at all. You just open your home, which is, and I know there's some costs associated with
Right.
that. So families are volunteer. Their visa won't allow us to do any compensation back to a host family, but with our specific program, the way that it works is you provide a bed, and they can share a room with a same-sex host sibling. So they can, if you have a teen daughter and you host a girl, they can share a room. They just need their own bed, and then meals. And so that's the basics you're committing to.
Yeah.
And then obviously you have life with them, and so those expenses of life. But that's all that it should cost. Our program has full insurance, or full medical plan for our students. So we pay the medical things. If you have a copay or something at a doctor, we reimburse that to you. So that way that we make sure that you're not out any medical expense. And then the same with ours, because they are on this scholarship, even if they sign up for, say, soccer, and they need some soccer cleats, or they need whatever, we have a budget to reimburse for those things, so that way the family's not out that money. So we walk you through an orientation of what's paid for, what's not. And then on top of that, we also, because we have kids from all over the world, and it is merit-based, and they don't always have a lot of money to spend, so we actually give the students an allowance, a pocket money allowance. And that way, if they're saving for a prom dress, they have some money to do that kind of stuff. So it's not coming out of the family's pocket. So we try to make it literally room and board. And then, of course, there's those little extra things that,
Yeah.
just small things that pop
Do
up.
they come for a whole year, like a whole school year, or do they come for?
With our program, all of our students come with WorldLink. They're all because of the scholarship. They're all here for a full school year. I think
Okay.
there are some programs that do some shorter terms. I actually love the school year because it's long enough to really connect. And so there are some families that ask about, could we just do a semester? Should we do whatever? But most of those families, even if they go into that situation, they end up staying the whole year, because at semester you're just not getting connected, and nobody wants to stop. So I think that's a perfect length of time. They arrive in August. So depending on the schools in your area, then students are starting to, families are starting to pick their student now. We're starting to match now. Some areas have early deadlines for their schools where, in the next few weeks, we actually need to have a student matched. And then others are more lenient throughout the summer. So depending on your area, you choose a student that matches you. in the spring or in the summer. Students then arrive to the airport, whatever's closest to you. They arrive in August, and you go pick them up at the airport, and our local coordinator shows up to be a part of that as well. And then throughout the year, then you're hosting them, and they go home in between mid-May and mid-June, depending on the country. So that way they stay through right at that end of the school year
Okay.
time.
So how do you match students with families other than, if somebody says they want a daughter, other than that, how do you know what the best fit is going to be? Or do you just kind of
Yeah.
pray and hope it works out?
Yes, there's some of that. There's a lot of that. But at the same time, you actually get to choose your own student. So what you do is you say,
Okay.
oh, this is my family dynamic. And, my child plays this and does this. And then we look through, we have a database of students who've earned this scholarship who are coming through WorldLink. And we look at those to try to find some matches. And then we say, here's, 2 or 3 or 4 that we think we narrowed it down to. And you look to see if there's somewhere that really stands out. You can tell us countries you're interested in or languages that you're hoping to learn, that kind of stuff. But a lot of time we do it based on interest in the beginning to say who's what, and to try to give you some selection. And then your family sits down and makes a choice of this one seems to match us. And it's always fascinating to see what people choose. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's one sentence in their application. They go, that's ours. That's our kid. We see it. And then I will say at the end, we usually have 2 or 3 that are the last kids that just haven't been selected yet. And sometimes those are the best matches when there is no selection. And we just say, you want to host? Here's a student. We put them together. And sometimes those are our best ones. So a lot of it is just, like you said, pray and hope and see how it goes. But at the same time, we do give you choice. And if you don't find someone in those first 3 or 4, we'll give you a few more to look at. And that way we can narrow it down together. But usually with those first 3 or 4, it's hard to choose which one because they are merit based and they do have so many interests and they're passionate kids. So
I know you said, depending on when this comes out, you may have certain things you want to talk about. Is there anything that you wanted to tell me, like this
yeah.
would be April? Was there anything that you wanted to tell me is happening around that time?
Well, I mean, my thought is because we are looking right now, we're looking for local coordinators throughout the next couple
Right.
months. And
Okay.
so if somebody's interested in hosting, then any time of year, and honestly for either any time of year, contact us and let's see what's
Sure.
going on. But because we're small, we do kind of cluster in little groups around the
Yeah.
country with our organization. But if you are interested in hosting, we obviously would love to talk to someone about that. And again, no pressure. I know I get passionate, but really no pressure. Sometimes
Right.
people are just curious and they want to know. So I'm happy to give information so they can make the best decision on the timing. And then on top of that, though, with our local coordinators, we do have that option available as well. So if somebody is looking to, what they want to make a difference, but they think, oh, the extra income would give me more time to do that. It's not a ton of money and it's very, very part-time. So most of our people have full-time jobs or their second income. So it's a second income opportunity for sure. It's definitely not a sole opportunity. But within that, if people love the world and they're not afraid to network in their community, that's another option that we would love to talk to people about as we're growing and in different areas and as we're trying to increase our reach. Because even with those small numbers of kids, we like to have them in diverse populations and communities so we can impact more of the American communities.
Yeah. Because it's a nonprofit, do y'all do fundraising? How does no?
We don't. So it's all
Okay.
grant funded through, yeah.
Okay.
So we apply for grants to run this program because the government is, paying for the student as part of a diplomacy project. So as part of the Education and Cultural Affairs Department, they pay for this program. We apply for that grant. And there's other organizations that do these scholarship students as well, because there are, like I said, with each program, there's, 900 kids. And so we spread those out to other organizations. And the grants to spread those out to others. So we don't do any fundraising or anything like that. And sometimes people want to volunteer in their communities. And if we have a cluster there that they don't want to be a coordinator, they want to volunteer, we'll talk to people that want to do that, for driving, things like that. But really our biggest need and the biggest thing that we want people to really consider is hosting and or becoming a local coordinator. Those are the 2 things that help us the most.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. How they could help if it wasn't fundraising, how else they could help. So that's good to know.
Yes.
Well, I love learning about this. This is very different than what I was expecting because I only know about, like I said, those kids in my high school and the public program. And this is very different. But I love this. I love that they have to earn the ability to be able to come over and and learn.
Yeah, and then it's amazing. They do have a leadership program, and people who want to connect with us just to see what our kids are doing, we have a Facebook page. Is probably our easiest way to connect with us, and it's amazing. Right now, they're in the middle of Global Youth Service Day, where they've been here since August, and they went to a retreat in January where we taught them how they've been volunteering in their communities and doing things. Then we taught them how to run a project, and we have kids across the country that are running small projects. So they're doing food drives and clothing drives and interesting things that they're doing in their American high schools to serve those local communities. And so watching all that on Facebook is lots of fun to see what they're doing because they're wild. I mean, they talk to thousands of people during November during International Education Week, and they're just really powerful kids. So if you want some hope in the world, but you're not able to host or not able to coordinate, then just follow us because I mean, it really is amazing where you think this generation is going to be, they're in great hands when you watch these little world leaders. It's amazing to watch.
That
What's
is so
happening.
encouraging. I will. I'm pretty sure I followed Whirlink, but I'm gonna have to go check it out. I don't think I really looked at a whole lot of it. I try to follow everybody that I talk to, so I can keep up with what everybody's doing. So I'll have to go check it out. Well, I have loved this. I really thank you for talking to me today, and I'm
Yeah,
excited to share. I think this is a great program. I hope some people will be interested and.
I hope so too. But it's amazing. I love what you do. What a great way to make a difference by sharing what other people are doing. So
I love it. I'm amazed constantly at what people are doing all over the world. It's just incredible. So
fabulous. Well, it's great to meet you, and I love your passion for what you're doing as well. And I'll have to go listen to more of your podcast, see what else we can do in the world to be helpful. So
that would be great. Yes. Thank you so much. You enjoy the rest of your day.
thanks. You
Okay.
too. Bye
Bye-bye.
bye.